Welcome back, guys, and welcome back to part 2 of this week's episode of the Freshman 15 College Football Podcast. In part 1, we talked about last week's game, Deion's monumental win against TCU. If you missed that part and want to hear our thoughts on last week, click on the link above. But for now, we're going to move on to this week, starting with this week's Saturday Spotlight. So, Tyler, man, I'm going to let you go first on this one. So we got games on the schedule this week. It's week 2, not quite yet in conference play, but there's some games brewing.
Yeah.
What is your game in the Saturday Spotlight?
I think this is the one everyone has circled because of the outcome that it was last year if someone doesn't get hurt, and it's Texas versus Alabama. So I don't know if that's what you're going to have, but, so last year, Texas is playing Alabama. This is the second game in the home series. And like I said, last year, Quinn Ewers gets hurt, and I believe they were up in that game when that happened. And so then they were counting on Card to lead them through there, and they almost pull it out there at the end. And if you talk to someone like a Texas fan, they'll say that if Ewers stays in, that game is going to be completely different. That they're going to end up winning that game, turn the tides for their whole season. And I mean, it could be if Ewers doesn't stay hurt for that.
It's fair.
The longevity of the season. Yeah, that's correct. But we like last week. If you look at last week, they kind of slow start against Rice. It seemed like a lot of the big schools had a slow start last week. One Ohio State that people are talking about. Well, we'll talk about that later maybe. But like I said, they were slow start against Rice. I think Alabama had a slow start, but then they took off again. They're headed by by Jalen Milroe and that 5 running back stable that they have. So it's going to be interesting to see who wins in the trenches. If Texas has one to pull out against Nick Saban here, and that's my Saturday Spotlight.
Okay, so I went a little bit different, man. I kind of stuck to theme with the whole kind of have and have-nots, right? And that's going to lead into my other game as well. But for this week, I went with Tulane and Ole Miss. And I think it's because this is what they call a swing game, in my opinion. And I really like what Willie Fritz has done with Tulane. They were a 2-win team back in 2021. They go 12-2 last year, and are ranked in the top 10. That in itself is a major accomplishment. Mm-hmm. So now in their first week, without Tajay Spears, they were very efficient offensively. Shout out to Massey once again. Talked about Pratt, the quarterback. Had only 1 incompletion, threw for over 300 yards, or just about that much. And the receivers were big play. Jaquan Johnson, Lawrence Keys, they were hot last week. Now you look at Ole Miss, and we got Jackson Dart out to another fast start. And it's like he has the connection already with the LA Tech transfer, Trey Harris. So he went off last week. And I know it's Mercer. I get it. But again, you kind of want to build up, right? Teams that got slow starts, they didn't have one. They started off really fast, blowing out Mercer. I think for them, it's a big week for the coaches, and that's going to be Lane Kiffin and Fritz. And again, I call it a swing game because if you lose as Lane Kiffin, that's where you get the side eye from the national media and the SEC, should he lose. But also for Fritz, if you win that game, it builds all this notoriety for your program in Tulane if they win. So I think it's going to be a close game. Ole Miss is on the road as a 3-point favorite. And I think the Rebels and the Green Wave should be mine and maybe a lot of other people's Saturday Spotlight.
I think there's only, like I said, this is a lot of non-conference play. It's a lot of lower division school, a lot of, group of 5s playing against the big schools, getting their payday for what it comes through the season. And, but we're lucky enough to have like 2 of those big games happening this week. So just enough to keep the food on the table to keep us interested and wanting to come back for more.
Oh, I feel you with that one. I feel you on that one. Okay. So tell you what, I'm going to beat you this way. Hopefully I'm beating you to the punch and we're going in different directions, but I'm going to go first with my upset pick.
Okay.
So I'm going to go this week with Miami over Texas A&M.
Okay. That's not what I had, but all right.
Cool. And again, I'm thinking more so on the narrative base. It's early. It's only week 2, officially, at least. But I wanted to ask this question, and this is kind of an open letter to you guys listening, or you, Tyler, or anybody else out there, is at what point does college football start coming at Jimbo Fisher the same way we come at Dabo Swinney? I ain't talking about Dabo. I didn't discuss it, but I just wondered, like, at what point did we start ragging on Jimbo? Because, and I don't mean coming from Florida State fans or SEC fans, but I mean everybody.
Yeah.
Because this guy has been getting top recruiting classes that he squanders, and then he drops them, they lose, and it's like right back to business.
Yeah.
So take, for example, last season, right? You go 5-7, including you lose to Appalachian State. So you go 2-6 in the SEC, and then you come into the season and you're ranked.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm saying, I'm just curious because it seems like they're always due for a letdown, and he just feels like he's ripe for the picking against Miami. And Miami, I get it, you're playing Miami of Ohio, but I think for them it's just building back up.
Yeah.
Like look at Miami last year; they had all these injuries. You had it to the offensive line. Van Dyke was hurt last season. They're back healthy, and not only that, I think their dynamic is different as well because now you have two good running backs. You have Mark Flesher, you have Henry Parrish. Flesher is your freshman, but they have that bit of an element, and we didn't talk about them as far as backfield duos, but they're kind of a thunder and lightning kind of thing they got going on there in Miami. So I think for this game, look for them to kind of establish the run, use the play action passing, and for the Aggies, be ready because I think that they're going to get home on Weigman, give them a hard time, and I'm going to go with the Hurricanes taking down the Aggies.
So to tap on that Jimbo Fisher thing, I'm gonna swing over to Dabo Swinney, and this is the only thing I'm gonna say about it this season because you and I, we talked about it last year. Like we dragged DJ Ojulari through the mud, but like you said, when does we seen it today? I sent you the clip. Paul Feinbaum saying that the Dabo Swinney era is done, which completely agree with, because if you look at like his record, like he always got these very good recruiting classes, and he was actually carried by two very good college quarterbacks, Deshaun Watson, Trevor Lawrence, and with great defenses coached by Brian Venerable. But now with NIL and things kind of evening out, like those elite classes where he was relying on talent, if you go back to another one of our episodes, he was relying more on talent than a system that he run, because his system with a bunch of different quarterbacks recently since T-Law left, it's not happening for him. So with that coming about, and then like I saw this crazy stat that in yesterday's Clemson game, they had 56 top recruits or 4 or 5-star recruits. Duke had 2. So there's a talent discrepancy, but Duke comes out on top in convincing fashion, and they pretty much just put their foot on their throat in the second half and said, we're gonna make you guys suffer for this. And we all got to see it. And Dabo did his little pandering thing at the end, but it's like you said, it's when do we start coming after these guys for this? But my upset special, to swing back into this, is I'm going to take a Midwest battle here, and I'm going to take Iowa State over Iowa. So Iowa State last week, they played against Northern Iowa, and yes, it's Northern Iowa, but Iowa State, they've had all of these guys with the scandals this offseason with betting against, we hear about the betting against his team, for his team, and a quarterback, a kicker, or something else like that. They don't do much on offense last week, but they hold Northern Iowa to under 200 yards total offense. Their quarterback only had 100, Iowa State's quarterback only had 113 yards passing. They didn't do much, but that defense was stingy. They had 2 pick sixes, I think 3 interceptions total, and they were stingy. But then you have an Iowa defense who is usually stingy, and now they have transfer from Michigan, Cade McNamara, and we'd think their offense would be a little bit better, which they are. They won 28-13 last week, but like I said, these blue bloods, they're coming into form because they're all playing against lower level teams, kind of. But will Cade McNamara, will he be able to be that much better of a talent aspect? Because they're still running that very bland Iowa offense, and they have been, and they always will until their offensive coordinator's gone. I don't know why they do it, but I'm taking Iowa State, who has potential to have a very high-powered offense, as we've seen before. Go play against this Iowa defense that's normally great. I think they just had 2 guys drafted in the first round this past year, and they're going to take down the Hawkeyes. That would be my upset special, is the Iowa State Cyclones taking down the Iowa Hawkeyes.
So I think the way it goes is styles make fights, and they're kind of walking into a fight that they're not maybe equipped for. Like you're walking into a slugfest, and all you got is a jab and stick and move. And I think if you can catch them off guard and stagger them, the Cyclones could just knock them out and blow them away. And that's a lot of defense words there.
I think there's gonna be a lot of. I think you're gonna see like maybe one of those 15-12 kind of games. This is kind of what it feels like.
Yeah, man, I'm with it. And this is like bonus stuff here too, because I kind of wanted to go back to the point as far as this might be like a double thing of hurting and helping themselves. I think it's funny because, and I don't want to keep staggering the point from part one of the episode, but
Mm-hmm.
I think you think about things like Dabo Sweeney, right? And just to kind of go back to him for a second, I think about Dabo Sweeney, think about Jimbo Fisher, who likes to when the stove gets hot, he tends to kind of back away and take off. But I think about Dabo as well, and I mean, you called it a while ago. You said he's very dependent on systems, and we did a show on systems before. And oftentimes he was in that top tier system. He was in that top class of recruiting classes, heavily relying upon his quarterbacks. And I just look at the difference of like what Dion is doing. For example, Shador drops an NIL deal, and I think he got a $2.5 million bump in his NIL deal based on what he did Saturday. And the guy who was like the most vocal against NIL was Dabo Sweeney.
Yeah. Yep.
So it's I'm not saying it's comeuppance. So
equals it out. So
what you put in the universe, you get back, man. So it's funny. I find it really funny. I think the people who are the loudest against the conventions and the systems, and a system they benefited from so long, he's now paying the piper. And I just think that's just the way of the world. And I'm not saying it's karma. I don't believe in that, but I do believe that there's a time and place for everything. And like Feinbaum said, and how you said it a long time ago, Dabo's time is up, and for Dion, maybe his time is now. So, that's what I got on that, man. But any last thoughts though?
No, like I do want to touch on I obviously I live in the Midwest, so I hear a lot of grumblings about like the Ohio State offense, how they only beat Indiana 23-3, and they were 30-point favorites, yada yada yada. But they're starting, I think, 3 brand new offensive linemen. They're starting a brand new quarterback. And so they played pretty conservative, and people are forgetting that like Indiana was rebuilt with college transfers. Like they have a pretty good defense, but if Marvin Harrison doesn't step out of bounds before he catches the ball and that play gets called back, McCord has 300 yards passing and a touchdown. Yeah, he has 2 really bad picks, but they played very conservative that game, and I believe by the time they get to Notre Dame that they're going to be more aggressive. We might not see the aggressiveness that we've seen against Georgia in the CFP, but it's going to rank right up there because they're going to have to against that strong Notre Dame team. So I think in due time, all the blue bloods will take a step as they continue to progress through this season. Like, Michigan was started off slow, Wisconsin, even Georgia started off slow in their first half before they finally took off. But like I said, all those guys are going to hit their stride by week 3, week 4, and then it's going to be a completely different ball game than what we're seeing right now.
Yeah, man, I think this is a matter of new faces, new places with new kind of expectations dawned upon them. That's all that really is. So I think we're just kind of ramping up, like you said. Conference play hasn't even started yet. We're so new in this young college football season. So that's pretty much it, man. That's all we have for tonight, guys. Once again, hit the like button, hit the sub button, share this with your friends wherever you guys find any college football heads, Twitter, whatever they call it these days, IG, wherever. Like and sub. As always, peace.
Peace.